Wasteland Travel Journal of Beaumont Sinclair, Day 1 to Day 3, Date Unknown. Torinobu and I find ourselves stranded on some strange alien desert world. After escaping the wreckage of the USS Vostros, we have found our way to a small settlement where, much to our surprise, we found a human, and not just any human, a human from Brimstone, a prospector named Pete. This prospector tells us that the city where he lives, a place called Marn, is suffering from a deadly plague, and as everyone there is too sick to venture out into the deserts and find this so-called water of life they claim to be a panacea, a cure-all for their ills, it has fallen to Torinobu and I to venture out and find it. Pete described it as a shimmering blue liquid and told us we would know it for sure when we see it for ourselves. The only hint we have to go on is that it is held by some ancient sage out in the desert, no doubt living in some blasted hovel. We set out on our first day of travel across the burning deserts, and it wasn't long before we came across an acidic river. The twin suns were low on the horizon as we passed through the rocky cliffs and sandy canyons. With night setting in, the boiling acid river at the base of the valley began to churn and release toxic mist into the air, filling the region with a deadly fume. We fled from the river as fast as we could, but the acrid vapours seemed to follow us, stinging and burning our lungs. The next day, we came across a rusty fort watchtower overlooking the valley ahead, and we could see from the bodies strung up on posts surrounding it that they didn't seem very friendly, and we decided to find another way around. We found ourselves that night sleeping under the stars in the open desert, and as I drifted off to sleep under the starry sky, I found my thoughts turning to the vastness of time and space, and all the horrors and wonders I have seen on my journeys. The next morning, while crossing the desert, we came across a scavenger trap, not that we knew it at the time. Stepping on a pressure plate beneath the sand, a series of junk bombs exploded all around Torinobu and I. Fortunately, the unreliable junk bombs didn't do much damage, but it was quite frustrating to pick bits of metal and shrapnel out of my arm for the rest of the day. In the distance, we can see an old scrap heap that might well be the place of this sage's hovel. Our plan is to make camp for the night, and tomorrow we will make for that scrap heap. Beaumont and Torinobu arrive deep in the deserts of the blasted wastes at the old junk heap. Well, Torinobu, this looks like the place.
Yes, Beaumont-san, this old junk heap should be where we will find the water of life.
Come on then, let's not waste any time. I want to get out of this desert before anything else bad happens. Beaumont leads the way, passing through the perimeter of the scrap metal surrounding the junk heap. Torinobu and Swampy pass him by, entering into some old, decrepit wreckage of a rusted freighter, long since crash-landed and abandoned in the deserts. Beaumont steps forward to join them, and he and Torinobu scavenge around the wreckage, looking for anything of use. But the ancient carcass of the long-dead starship proves to have nothing of value. Swampy, meanwhile, moves ahead, deeper through the desert sands of the junk heap, and the loyal dog finds himself deeper within the wreckage of a broken freighter. The broken and rusted hulk of a once massive spaceship rests here, half buried in the desert sands. By the look of it, it has been here some time. Then again, with the acidic dust storms here, the erosion probably makes quick work of anything left out in the elements. As they search the wreckage, Torinobu's foot bursts through the corroded floor, and his leg sinks into a sulphurous acidic pool.
Itayo! Oh, Beaumont-san, this wreckage is very dangerous. I believe we should move forward and quickly.
Yes, you're right, Torinobu. Let's get the bloody hell out of here. But before the two men can press on and catch up to Swampy, they hear the familiar sound of the strange alien language of the scavengers. It seems they are not the only ones searching the junk heap. A trio of the wasteland scavengers emerge from the desert and step towards the broken freighter. Swampy sees them and begins barking wildly. Beaumont, hearing his dog in peril, rushes to catch up and joins Swampy. Seeing the three scavengers, he immediately draws his boarding rifle and takes aim. The energy blasts burn through the chest of one of the scavengers, and it collapses to the ground in a smoking heap. Then Torinobu, after pausing to bandage up his injured leg, rushes forward to catch up to them. The two remaining scavengers open fire on Beaumont. Their bullets whiz by, winging him and cutting a shallow groove down his shoulder. Then one of them rushes forward, swinging its sword wildly, a rusted, jagged piece of metal, tearing at Beaumont's clothes and flesh. Its fellow scavenger runs by and attacks Torinobu, but the samurai deftly sidesteps its clumsy strikes, and then retaliates with his own gleaming blade. The scavenger topples backwards, slashed to ribbons by Torinobu's expert strikes. And then Swampy, seeing Beaumont in peril, rushes forward and begins barking, yapping, and biting at the scavenger alien. While it is distracted by the dog, Beaumont draws his fire whip and lashes out at the scavenger. The whip wraps around its neck, and Beaumont yanks it to the ground as the coursing magical fires channel through the rope, and the scavenger bursts into flames and is quickly reduced to a pile of ash by the magical fires. They search what is left of the bodies and find a few supply stashes on them, along with handfuls of what they assume to be the scrap and tech that Pete told them are used for money in the wasteland barter towns. Well, maybe we can buy a drink with this junk. I'm not sure what value they see in it, though.
Who knows, Beaumont-san, but we should take it with us, just in case.
I wonder if they know how to play cards on this planet. I'm sure I could teach them. Anyway, let's get moving. That water of life has got to be around here somewhere. Beaumont presses on, heading in the direction from where the scavengers came. Torinobu heads a different way, finding himself in a desert valley. Swampy, meanwhile, joins Beaumont, and the two find themselves outside of a large hunter's tent. No doubt the temporary home of the scavengers that attacked them. The room is filled with bones, furs, and items hanging from the walls and ceiling. This is clearly a collection of trophies, ceremonially placed here to gain favour from the spirits. Beaumont can't help but be tempted to look through the gruesome display to see if there is anything of value before any more of the scavengers return. He finds a few more handfuls of the scrap and tech money, but nothing else of use. Torinobu, meanwhile, much to his surprise, encounters a caravan of refugees from the beleaguered and disease-ridden city of Marn. Wrapped in robes and scarves, these nomads are not welcome in any settlements, instead forced to travel the desert wastes, eking out a living on the scraps of others. Torinobu presumes they also are seeking the water of life, and seeing their plight, hands them a bottle of tonic and some bandages.
Here you are, take these, and hopefully it will restore some health to you and your people.
The alien nomads respond in a language Torinobu does not understand. However, they gladly seem to take the gifts, and Torinobu feels his spirits lifted and his determination renewed. Then, as the caravan quickly moves on, he feels the desert sand begin to vibrate beneath his feet, and from a hulking pile of wreckage further into the valley emerges a gigantic crustacean-like creature with sharp pincers and rock-hard scales on its body. It is some kind of gigantic sand crab, and it does not look friendly.
Beaumont-san, over here, hurry!
Torinobu yells, and Beaumont, hearing his friend in peril, turns from the tent and rushes towards him to help. The sand crab comes rushing towards Torinobu. It dives at him, swinging one of its great pincers that catch Torinobu in the side and knock the wind out of him. But he quickly recovers and unsheathes his sword, and lunges forward at the massive sand crab.
Yo!
His sword pierces its thick armoured hide, but it is not enough to fell the beast. Then Swampy comes running, joining Beaumont, barking and yapping in encouragement. "Don't worry, Torinobu, it'll be crab's legs for dinner," Beaumont says, stepping forward raising his boarding rifle. The energy bolts burn the sand crab's carapace into a dark blackened ash, but to Beaumont's surprise, the creature still lives and prepares to strike again. But this time, Torinobu is ready for it and manages to fend off the blow. He quickly follows up with a counterattack. And this time manages to slice the innards of the sand crab to pieces, and the giant beast falls backwards and lies still in the sand.
It looks like we have more than just scavengers to worry about in this place, Beaumont-san.
Yes, it would seem so. All the more reason to hurry up and get this over with.
Yes, let us continue.
Swampy runs deeper into the valley, sniffing around and searching for a clue to where the water of life may be. Meanwhile, Beaumont crosses some of the sandy dunes and heads off down a different path. He finds himself staring off down a long sandy pathway flanked on either side by gigantic sand dunes. Torinobu moves towards Swampy, planning to explore with the dog, and then Swampy looks at him eagerly and barks, heading off through the junk heap in a different direction to Beaumont.
Beaumont-san, I think Swampy may have found something.
Swampy finds himself emerging in a sinking hulk. The area is filled with pools of corrosive acid bubbling and churning from toxic well springs below the surface. Several rusted fragments of old spacecraft protrude up out of the acid, and Torinobu can hear groaning and sizzling as they are actively being burned away by the deadly pools. The ground here may be unstable, he thinks. Then, before he can press on any further, the blinding streak of a crashing ship flashes across the sky like a shooting star, burning through the atmosphere as it's pulled in by the planet's inescapable gravity well. As he stares into the sky, he is awed by the alien beauty of the flickering rays of light on the horizon. Torinobu wonders to himself how many people have been stranded on this blasted wasteland over the years. As one of the twin suns begins to dip in the sky, Beaumont turns back from the sandy pathway and rushes to catch up with Torinobu and Swampy, gritting his teeth and pushing himself forward toward the corrosive sinkholes. Bloody hell, this doesn't look too safe. Are you sure we should go this way?
Swampy seems to think this is the way.
Alright then, come on boy, let's follow that sniffer of yours. Torinobu catches up to Beaumont. Then, Swampy easily and deftly leaps from pieces of sand and debris, crossing over the corrosive sinkhole and reaching the other side of the toxic pool. The little dog yaps in delight as it emerges into another sandy pathway that forks off in two directions. Beaumont crosses the corrosive sinkhole next, and fortune favours him as he manages to avoid any of the acidic pools. Torinobu follows along behind, lightly hopping from pieces of wreckage to the sandy dunes on the far bank of the corrosive pool.
We were very lucky there, Beaumont-san. That could have been very dangerous.
Well, let's just hope we can find another way back that's not quite so dangerous.
Indeed, Beaumont-san.
Swampy runs off down the sandy pathway, barking excitedly, as up ahead they see a scavenger's shanty, sitting amidst the junk and sand dunes.
Do you think this is the dwelling of the sage that P.T.-san mentioned?
Well, the only other hovel I've seen around here belonged to those bloody scavengers, and there was nothing in there of use. Let's go take a look, shall we? Beaumont steps forwards, pushing open a rusted metal door in the side of the wreck. He discovers a small room protected against the elements. Though its inhabitants do not appear to be home, a small pot boils above a makeshift fire pit in the floor. Whoever lives in this place is either hiding or just slipped out before Beaumont entered. Once again, fortune's favour smiles on Beaumont as he quickly rummages around some of the junk. He finds some more of the scrap that these people use as their money. And then he sees a glistening bottle of blue liquid set on one of the shelves. Look there, Torinobu.
What is it?
It looks like that must be it. That looks like the water of life that Petey told us about. He said it was a shimmering blue liquid, didn't he?
He did. Perhaps we have found the place. Let us investigate.
As they prepare to enter the desert dwelling properly, they realize that it is not abandoned after all. Seeing the bloodstains in the sand, Beaumont quickly realizes what must have happened to the sage who lived here. And then he hears the strange alien language of the scavenger creatures. From the back of the hovel emerges another of the wasteland warlords, and with him are two of his scavenger bodyguards carrying the gigantic scrap cannons that they saw back at the wreckage of the Vostros. Then, 3 more of the scavengers emerge from hiding, carrying their junk rifles and jagged rusty blades. Bloody hell, looks like these chaps got here first.
These bandits have no honor, Beaumont-san. We will take the water of life from them.
Beaumont turns and raises his boarding rifle. Its solar power coil fully charged by the burning suns of the blasted wastes. He takes aim and squeezes the trigger. But his shot goes wide and only singes the arm of one of the scavengers. Then, before he can aim again, the warlord comes charging towards them and swings its great rusty axe at Swampy. The little dog jumps around, doing its best to avoid any of the strikes, but is caught and receives a shallow cut down its side.
You have no honor,
Torinobu says in anger. As the warlord picks on the little dog, he charges forward and unleashes his blade on the wasteland warlord. The warlord is quick and skilled, parrying his blows and blocking them with its big rusty shield. Then the scavengers open fire with their junk rifles. Beaumont, Torinobu and Swampy are all hit by debris flying through the air, but fortunately none of the wounds are serious. Then the 3 scavengers charge in, 2 of them trying to chop Swampy to pieces, but the nimble little dog fights for its life, ducking and dodging out of the way of their attacks, receiving only a few minor cuts, but it is enough to make Swampy howl in pain and fear. Then the 2 scavenger heavy gunners step forward and unload with their scrap cannons, but the junky, unreliable weapons spray heaps of scrap metal and junk in all directions, but none of them hit. Swampy flees from the fusillade of scrap metal flying through the air and takes cover behind Beaumont. Beaumont quickly retaliates, drawing his holdout pistol and opening fire on one of the scavengers that had been attacking his dog. The bullet punches straight through the alien's skull and it topples backwards, dead. Then the wasteland warlord continues its attack on Torinobu, but the samurai is too quick and too skilled, parrying and dodging away from all of its attacks, and then counters with a deadly lunge of his own.
Yo!
The warlord looks down, shocked, as Torinobu's katana crackles with dark stone energy, impaling the warlord directly through the stomach. It gurgles something in its alien language and then collapses backwards, dead, its blood leaking onto the sand. The remaining scavengers become enraged at the death of their warlord and charge forward, firing their rifles clumsily and drawing their jagged rusty blades. Beaumont manages to avoid his attacker's swings, but Torinobu, already tired from his fight with the warlord, is unable to fend off all of the scavengers' hits. Then, as he struggles to parry its rusty blade, the 2 heavies open up once again with their scrap cannons. This time, Torinobu is caught full in the path of the rusty junk, and he is battered and hammered to the ground, unconscious, by all the many pieces of scrap they fire at him. "You bloody cretins," Beaumont says, drawing his whip. And the hooks of the fire whip sink into the leg of the closest scavenger. He yanks the whip up and the scavenger topples over. Then, as it bursts into flames, he draws his revolver and opens fire on the fallen alien. His bullets smack into the carapace of the insectoid body. and it cries out in pain before dying. Then Torinobu struggles back to his feet, refusing to be defeated by such a dishonourable foe. He swings his blade in a series of lightning strikes, and the blade weeps with the bright blue blood of the scavenger as it topples over, its body cut to pieces, with only the 2 heavy scavengers remaining. The fight looks as if it is going in Beaumont and Torinobu's favour, until they realise, by killing the scavengers and the warlord, they have left an open path to themselves, and now the scavengers do not need to take aim. Instead, they both open up with their scrap cannons, spraying rusted, jagged metal in all directions, filling the air with sharp junk and debris. Torinobu manages to dodge out of the way, but unfortunately for Beaumont, he is caught by the whirlwind of scrap and is sent crashing to the ground in an unconscious bloody mess. Then the 2 alien scavengers take cover inside the sage's hovel, and Torinobu thinks better of rushing in alone. Instead, he goes to Beaumont's side and helps him back to his feet, bandaging some of his wounds, whilst Beaumont's healing stone takes care of the rest of the damage.
There is only 2 of these dishonourable monstrosities left, Beaumont-san.
Well, let's get them dealt with then, shall we? The 2 scavengers, seeing Torinobu take time and turn his back to help Beaumont, come rushing out of the hovel, their scrap cannons firing wildly, but completely missing their targets, as the inaccurate weapons spill forth gouts of rusted junk. Beaumont returns fire with his shotgun. But the buckshot is absorbed by the massive frame of the scrap cannons, and his shot fails to find its target. Torinobu, however, executes the dancing dragon technique and darts from one scavenger to the next, cutting them down their sides at lightning speed. Then, having got behind the 2 heavy scavengers, he leaps high into the air and brings his blade down on the back of one of their heads. The scavenger's decapitated body falls to the sand and twitches violently. Then, Beaumont, seeing his opportunity in the confusion of the swirling melee, backs up and takes careful aim with his shotgun. He loads it with his ace in the hole, dark stone shells, hoping it will tip the balance in his favour, and then doubles down, squeezing all 3 triggers at the same time. The enormous blast of buckshot bursts out of the barrel and hammers straight into the heavy scavenger. The alien is no match for such an overwhelming onslaught, and its body is blasted to shreds by the impact.
Well, that's the last of those buggers. Yes, Beaumont-san, let us go and investigate the hovel.
The 2 men step inside the sage's hovel and begin searching around. It is mostly old and useless junk scavenged from starships, but then Torinobu comes across what appears to be some kind of safe made of thick, ancient iron. The door to it is prized halfway open, no doubt by the scavengers who had been here.
Beaumont-san, I think I have found something,
Torinobu says as he pulls the safe door open wider to get a better look. Inside, there are dozens of bottles of the shimmering blue liquid that radiates with an ethereal light. Good work, Torinobu. That's got to be the stuff. It's a shame about the sage, but there was nothing we could do. Come on, let's load up that water of life and get back to Marn. Hopefully, it's not too late to save the people.
Right, Beaumont-san. Let us get back there as quickly as possible.
The 2 men load the water of life into their bags and then set off back toward the plagued city of Marn, hoping that its residents, and particularly a prospector, have not succumbed to their illness while they've been away.